So one thing I've noticed over the last couple days is the difference between Tyson Barrie and TJ Brody and how they've been compared, both playing for the Leafs. Um, I'm more optimistic about Barrie because of three reasons: his journey, his playoff points total, and the fact that he's from the Toronto area. So before we get into this, please subscribe if you like this video. There's plenty more like it on the channel. I do them daily. If there's no news like today, I'm going to do videos like this where I go into film. I watch a ton of film and then I talk about these players. So yeah. Um, TJ Brody, if you look at his output, his stats are not as good as Tyson Barrie. His numbers aren't as good. Tyson Barrie always looked like a more offensive defenseman. Even last year with the Leafs, Tyson Barrie put up better numbers than TJ Brody, which is hard to believe given how crap he was last year. But me being optimistic about Tyson Barrie last year, I thought I'd look at their film and see what the difference is. So the first thing is TJ Brody. His story. He's a grinder. Fourth round pick. Went through all the different channels of playing hockey and getting to the show and just working his way up. And he didn't have a lot of points. He's never put up a lot of points, but that's something that the Leafs need. Is they need someone who's reliable and who's a grinder and who will work to be there. I think one thing that with Tyson Barrie we noticed is not only did he get caught out of position, but he just looked lost and he looked tired and he looked like he didn't want to be there, especially under Babcock. So I don't think we'll get that at all with TJ Brody. I think he's excited to be here, obviously signed. Dubas wanted him last year instead of Barrie, and Nas vetoed that trade. But yeah, I think that's the first reason. Second is that TJ Brody has been a playoff contributor. If you look at their playoff numbers, Barrie has been very spotty in the playoffs. Had no points last year for the Leafs in the playoffs, whereas Brody was consistently putting up points. I think that the difference between them two is that Brody shoots left and plays right, which normally means that they're an offensive guy, but Brody has proven to be more of a defensive guy. And I think, yeah, it really helps us in that way. I think the only goal of Brody was to play with Morgan Riley. I think Barrie got shot around for D partners and ended up playing with Dermott. He couldn't play with Muzzin, he couldn't play with Riley, and Riley was hurt a bunch last year. So yeah, really struggled to fit in Toronto, and I don't think Brody will have those same problems, especially since we signed him, and especially given how much Dubas wanted him. And finally, TJ Brody is from Ontario. He's done the skills comp video with the Leafs, as I think many people have seen, and he's a good Toronto boy. And I think that's the difference between giving it 100% and giving it 90%, especially in a contract year. I think that's why you see Barrie taking a 1-year deal. Is he did not perform last year. He was talking about wanting $8 million a year. He wanted the Petro money. Buddy, guy didn't even work hard for it. He showed up and he's like, yeah, I'm going to play third line with the third line. You're going to put CC with Riley, Muzzin with Justin Hall, and I'm going to play with Travis Dermott on the third line. Like, he never showed that want to grab the game by its throat and just control it and be a good top six defenseman. And I think that's what separates the good players from the great. And there's a reason Colorado just shopped him, is because they didn't need a guy like that who's just going to half-ass it. So, Brody comes from Calgary. He's probably had a lot of his own problems with Calgary. They obviously have had very menial playoff success, but he's always showed up in the playoffs, always put up points in the playoffs, always been one of those guys along with Tkachuk that always shows up in the playoffs. Calgary have no goaltending. Their best player never shows up in the playoffs. And TJ Brody worked through that and still produced in the playoffs. And I think that's what we need. We need a guy who's not going to disappear, who's not going to just show up for 2 games, score 2 goals back to back as soon as we get a new coach and be like, oh my God, he's here. we figured it out, and then disappear for the rest of the season. That's what Tyson Barrie was. He was there for money. He was there for a paycheck. He never seized the moment. And in sports, you only get so many moments. I know this. I got my moments when I was super young, and then I realized my level. And I think that Tyson Barrie had a moment to become a hero in Toronto, and he didn't seize that. He got an opportunity that I bet millions of people would crave or desire, or I don't know what they'd do for it, but that's like their dream. And he didn't seize the moment. That's what separates players who are going to go down in history and players who don't. And I'm not expecting TJ Brodie to go down in history, but I do have patience for him, and I think that the difference between him and Barrie is that he's a tough motherfucker who's going to show up in games. And he's going to want to play with Morgan Rielly. And we got more depth behind him now with Bogosian, and hopefully Hall's still staying on the team. And on the left side with Lettinen and Muzzin coming back after his injury. So I'm super excited for TJ. I think he's the better player. He's more my type of player. I like defensively minded guys. I like guys who can play both sides of the ice, not just like a Hjalmarsson who's strictly defensive, and not just like a Brent Burns who's strictly offensive. I want a good balance. I feel like TJ Brodie is more of a balance. Tyson Barrie was horrible in his own end and got caught out all the time. Now, granted, he was playing. He had chances with like 8 different D partners, it felt, last year, but he never looked like that was what he wanted, where he wanted to be, and that he was only there because he was in a contract year and he wanted to put up numbers so he could get a bigger paycheck. And when you play for the Leafs, I hope it's about more than money, because when you play for the Leafs, even if you're a trash player, even if you're like bottom 6, bottom pair defenseman, you're going to get money. You're going to get commercials. Mickey had a commercial. Connor Brown had a commercial. Like, guys get commercials. Dermott had commercials. Like, it's a marketing superpower. And Barrie was there for money, and he didn't seem interested in playing for the crest. And I hope that TJ Brodie proves a lot of people wrong in saying that he's just another Tyson Barrie and it's just another paper over the cracks. I also think that he's good because he knows the grind. And I think someone in the system that's going through that right now as a first-round pick and isn't looking good prospects for this year is Timothy Liljegren. And he can learn from TJ Brodie. Look, TJ Brodie was a 4th-round pick and had to go through the AHL, had to go through do extra years in the OHL. And he barely played at the start of his career. And I think that Liljegren needs someone like that, who needs to know that his time is coming, and that if he works harder and if he makes it, then that's where you go and you become a good defenseman. You get paid $5 million a year to play for the best, my favorite team, play for the best marketing team in the league, and play with the team with one of the best histories in the league. So, TJ Brodie, welcome to the Leafs. Super pumped about you. And, I want to know what you guys think about the Tyson Barrie versus TJ Brodie debate in the comments. Please subscribe. Videos every day, no matter what, even when there's no news like today. Thanks.